seems we've lost a few
I
people
know.
that trickled off and. But I appreciate everybody who,
I promise I'm taking a shower before I come.
is it, well, maybe it's just,
Maybe I
yeah,
just.
I don't know. Maybe, but I mean, I appreciate, I think it's, or is Brenda's on too. I know Brenda's made sure that she's had foot surgery. So she's had to.
That didn't look- that picture she sent.
No. Is she on, John?
Not yet. We do have one person watching.
Okay. She did tell me she was going to Zoom.
But if people watch it on YouTube, I can't see them.
Yeah, last time she got on Zoom, so just keep an eye out for her. I think she'll join when she can.
Okay.
But I do appreciate the core of us who have been here and been able to follow along and see all the presentations. Cindy, do you want to go ahead and give us a?
Yeah, I kind of found this, I don't know how appropriate it is, but anyway, it says, why is patriotism thought to be blind loyalty to government and the politicians who run it, rather than loyalty to the principles of liberty and support for the people? Real patriotism is a willingness to challenge the government when it's wrong.
I like that too. Thank you.
Anyway.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, I have got.
I got one too. It's
Really good. Sorry. That was like alarmingly loud. All right, so I know we were kind of discussing a little bit before, but I want to thank Chris for giving the presentation last week. I'd like to see, Bill, how you feel. We kind of had a little bit of discussion, so we're gonna have it now more, but the committee giving an actual presentation that's a little more formal of all that we have discussed, all of our recommendations.
100%.
I just don't know that our thoughts have been expressed to the council in a way that can be discussed. Now, you know, I think last week was the first week that we tried to do that, and Chris didn't get as much time as I think we'd like to
Yeah.
see. And so if we could.
I
get that
think it
on
would
the
probably be helpful if we make the direct request of council
agenda. Yes,
to say, you know, we'd like it, obviously, there's gonna be a time limit, right? We don't
Yeah.
wanna go for hours and hours and hours.
I can't
But-
do that.
Yeah, right, yeah. But if because it sounds like there is a desire, and I agree with it, to have a little bit more of a question. I mean, not a question, a conversation with
Mhm.
council, where council does more than just sit there and stare at us blindly
Yes.
and just kind of listen and then not say anything.
Well, I think also with some of our recommendations, we've had some good solutions and thoughtful solutions to the issues that we've seen, and I think that that's also something that would be nice to discuss. Or at least express to the council.
But it may be that when Chris gives the presentation.
I think he won't be here, and we were discussing next week, he's got a,
Next week is. Well, then when Cindy gives the presentation.
I lucked out too. I'm gonna be gone. In fact, I was supposed to be gone today. So I waited.
Whoever's giving the presentation,
we're looking at it.
maybe you and I'll tag team.
Yeah,
And I think it would be appropriate, John, correct us if we're wrong, but it would be appropriate to ask council what they think. Not just to give,
Yes.
but to give a point and then
Yeah.
say, okay, council members, what do you think about that?
yes, and I'd also like to present it in a way that they can use our recommendation in their discussion as they move forward. I mean, that's kind of our purpose. It's just, hey, this is where we've seen some things. Otherwise, we're just all having a good time learning about the budget.
It might be nice too. I know last year when we had the out brief, as Chris calls it, Councilmember Paul calls it. We had the slide deck from the PowerPoint presentation. but we didn't really have a summary page.
Well, I was
And
gonna say, I can build a summary page,
I think that's gonna be easier
Mhm.
for council to follow,
But
but I
right? To
think we
have,
just need one page with our points
Yep.
and our recommendations. And then-
Very
Now-
simplified.
very simple, and then they can
Outside of
keep
that.
that and use it in their discussion.
I'm happy to do that, and then I can email that.
We could give you some.
Yes, and I can get feedback.
Right.
And it'll be made, that's kind of what we can go over today, is summarizing.
Yeah.
Finishing up any questions that you have on bigger items, and then deciding exactly what those points will be. Phil, do you think that the 7th, the next one, the fund balance and final priorities review is where we should do it?
When is the tentative have to be passed?
14th.
The week after that, right? Yeah, so I
It's the
think it should
14th.
be, well, I don't know. What, finance director, what do you think? When do you think it would be most helpful for us to present our recommendations?
Is Brenda on? Can we hear her?
She's on now,
Okay, she did make the comments, it needs more details than last year's.
so
I don't know what-
I'm gonna promote her to a panelist so that she can speak when she needs to.
So the tentative is really the kickoff
Yeah,
of the budget,
that's kind of when the grind hits.
yeah. So it's not like we have to have, obviously, the budget has to be balanced but not completed, right?
Right.
For the tentative, and so,
Modifications can still be needed.
yeah. So if like you still need some time to get stuff together, your presentation together, it's not necessary to have it before the tentative.
I'd kind of like to be there.
Okay, what?
As
what
well.
does the
Are you
14th
available on the
work?
14th?
I'll be back on the 14th.
Okay,
How's your 14th look? We won't force you to present. even if you-
I would have guessed,
No,
no.
okay. And Brenda may be up and about.
yes, Brenda?
I know the 14th is a regular city council meeting, but I wonder if presented it on the 17th, or the 7th, which is a work meeting, might give us a little more back and forth communication with the city council, because they're a little less proper at work meetings. And my comment about more detail, the last year presentation was great as far as a summary, but I didn't feel that it gave any specific detail as to what was felt that the council could do with the money.
Okay. So we'll just hear your input then as we start putting together what that'll look like, and then we'll be able to give feedback as I send something out to everybody, because I
That's
just
fine.
don't remember what last year's looked like.
Well, last year there were three different categories, right? There were things that were discussed and recommended,
Mhm.
things that were, as I remember it, things that were discussed and some recommended, and things that one or two people mentioned but weren't ever discussed. And I remember as a council person, it's like, okay, so what's the meeting?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty much all together on all of our recommendations. So it'll just simply be recommendations. So the work session versus the tentative budget, where are we gonna be the most effective to have them incorporate it in their discussion?
Probably at the beginning.
Of the 14th or on the
Oh.
work session?
I mean, the best chance for them to make a change is gonna be on the 7th. Because that's the whole point of that meeting, is for them to be talking about what to cut and how to massage things to get it to balance.
Okay,
If we can, I mean, I can zoom in.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love you to be there, but
Yeah, I'll zoom in.
I wanna make sure that we're giving you at a time that they're getting incorporated into their discussion about the budget.
So
and then
when
maybe,
you,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, when you do the Zooms on these meetings, is there an opportunity for somebody to comment? Okay.
Yeah. John could probably even promote you to a panelist so that you could
During
not
the
have
presentation.
during the
During the
presentation, so you
presentation.
don't have to raise your hand kind of thing.
Yeah.
And maybe what we do on the 14th, Brenda, let me know if you think this is appropriate. But maybe what we do on the 14th is in public comments, one of us can get up and just remind council of the bullet points that we had presented the week before. Just a, hey, council, a reminder that these are the things that the recommendations quickly from the budget committee that we discussed last week. Boom, 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 boom. And then sit down.
That's a good idea. Keeps
That
it
was-
fresh.
Yeah. Just
So I think
reminder.
that proximal nature of, you know, so that it's right there.
Okay. I think that sounds.
Does that sound good,
And
Brenda?
then maybe by that time, they may even have some questions.
Yeah, maybe they will.
Yes, I think that's great.
Okay. I'll put together just a page with the information of our bullet points. Before we get to before we get to those, Cindy, let's see if we can get some answers to anything that you had or any unanswered questions anybody has about the budget overall.
When you did the presentation Tuesday, you had a summary, right? Of what was increasing and what. Did we have, yeah, it was just this, it was more simplified, I felt like, than these actual yellow sheets.
So that was for the amendment.
Oh, those are just for amendments.
That was for for the current year budget.
For a current year budget, okay, so that had nothing to do with next year's then. Okay. So I don't know, maybe we ought to just look at some of these yellow sheets and look at some of the big ticket items and see.
All right, I don't have my whole pages with me.
Well, I think John can talk.
I know, but he disappeared. My computer is in my car. Can I grab it?
Let's see.
I'm sure he'll be right back.
So you just tell
There's,
us where you want to
I
start.
don't know,
We'll go.
there's like stormwater, I mean, to me,
Okay.
that one,
Before we jump into that, probably the biggest monetary item is,
Salaries.
thank you. I don't know why, but my brain was stuck on celery, and I hate celery, but it couldn't get off of celery.
Salaries.
That's the wrong word.
That's actually this, we were never really kind of went over that. did
we did not,
No, and I don't know that. Because it's kind of
a hard one.
yeah, it's not really a, you know, there's a philosophical aspect to salaries, right? And do we or don't we give raises, and, you know, what kind of a employment strategy are we in? Are we in a maintain? Are we in an attract and retain? And I think the city is still in that attract and retain, which means, I don't know, finance director, is that something that we should give commentary on?
I don't.
Would it be inappropriate if we were to give commentary on? Do you think?
I don't know, I don't know that it's inappropriate.
Okay.
That's why my question was to see how much revenue we have in comparison to the budget. And see if our budget's affordable, and if not, then you have to start making cuts, right? Or you increase the taxes coming in, like you were saying. Me, as a resident, I don't wanna see my taxes increase. So
And maybe what we do is next week on the 7th, we give our recommendations. The tentative budget will be passed on the 14th, the following week. And at that meeting, we'll have revenues and expenditures, and we'll know at that point, at least preliminarily, what it is we're looking at. Is the budget balanced? Is there a revenue increase that needs to occur? I think we'll have that full information at that point, and maybe we reserve comment until after we get that, because then we have till June, second week of June to pass the final budget.
The ninth.
9th.
11.
Okay. 11th.
We get the ninth.
So we would have a month that the committee could gather again and look at and say, okay, here's projected revenues, here's projected expenses. They're balancing, they're not balancing, if they're not balancing, what cuts might be appropriate, where would we recommend, if anywhere. It may be like last year, where the committee determined that there wasn't anywhere that couldn't cut,
Yeah,
right? And we are where we are. But at least we have that month that we can do that.
So then
Me
now
again,
we're gonna wanna meet one more time.
Brenda start to say something.
me again. As far as I recollect and remember that my brain is old and I've had pain meds, but everything that I remember talking about on the yellow sheets, we made no suggestions as far as feeling the need to cut anything. We made a few suggestions on what we felt needed to be continued to be supported, like the streetlights, the police cameras. But I don't remember any questions that we have had so far being concerned about what things are being paid for.
Yeah.
I think the only one that really sticks out in my head was the idea of working towards recreation being self-funded, or, you know, how to make that.
I had a question on that one.
Well, and I hate to say that survey did not cover that at all. It asked you what parks you went to,
Yeah,
but it
that's-
didn't say anything about whether or not the city should help subsidize, people should help subsidize. That was not brought up in that survey at all.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think that survey on the parks was in the hopper, ready to go before we recommended that they have a survey on the philosophical question about how much subsidy should recreation within the city get. Is that correct?
That's what I wondered, if there was going to be a second survey.
I think there is.
There is, I've started working on it, getting some ideas on questions and stuff. Yeah, but we're trying to space it out far enough that the council, or that, you know, it's not one the week after, but I think our goal is to get it out here in the next couple of weeks.
Question on grants and on the parks. I remember it came up that Barker Park was gonna have a big, whatever, speaker system or something that was gonna be covered by the grant. Can grants cover recreational costs?
There are some grants, like one of the struggles we have as North Ogden City is our average income is pretty high. And we're not a former mining or industrial area. And so we do qualify for some grants, but not as many as other places do.
So then the expense that they want to do at Barker Park, and refresh my memory on that, but it seemed like they were gonna do some kind of a speaker system.
So ramp,
Install.
that's one of those grants we do apply for, or we did qualify for, and that's through ramp. And the half of that cost was paid for by the ramp grant and the other half was the city.
And that was in this last year's budget.
What's it?
Mhm.
So it's not in next year's budget, then?
No,
correct.
I haven't heard that, okay. I just was trying to think of some areas where you might be able to steal from one to pay for the other, and
Yeah,
So it's in the budget but not spent, so it's carrying forward.
No, it's been installed. Yeah.
okay, well, then I guess we just need to look at the yellow sheets and maybe quickly review some of them, and I guess the big hits are the motor pool. So maybe we need to take a look at that again.
well, I think, yeah, any questions? I don't know that I have the same ones you do. I'll bring it up if I do, but like coming in, I think I was pretty comfortable with where we were at.
I do
So-
have this question is, what is the employment status that where the city is at? Are they trying to add staff? Or attract and retain? I know we had the discussion of for the police, it's it's much easier to retain than it is to bring new folks in, which goes right back to your budget of how are you going to retain those people? Are you gonna financially reward them or not? I mean,
do we want to have a salary discussion?
I think I need to know what the city management is trying to accomplish in order to be supportive of a budget that accomplishes that. But at the same time, I'm also a taxpayer and don't want my taxes to go up, but if you don't pay people, they will leave.
So we currently, we are adding 1.5 positions. One position is in the budget. We talked about the other half, 2 positions. Is that the Parks one? Oh, you're talking across the way? So one is a position we're adding at the senior center to take that over. And the county is giving us some money to help with that. And then the other one that's currently in the budget is an additional finance department employee. Which is just for additional help for finance department who is overloaded and, we're just not behind on some things, but probably we'd like to be much more ahead of the game.
Is that full-time?
As well as provide a backup. For example, right now, the 2 people who run payroll, it's Jamie all the time. And when Jamie's out of town, it's me. And that's about a 2-day job. And we need an extra skilled person who can do that. So, those are the 2 positions. And then on everybody else, the goal is to maintain, not lose. We have looked at some positions about maybe providing, combining and realigning people's work who are currently here. Maybe are a little light in duty and to help in other areas. But mostly it's kind of to maintain the status quo. And then we have a system that it's called TechNet that tells us the salaries of everybody in similar positions within a certain distance or within a certain size. So we look really closely at cities of our size. The state also has a transparency website where we can get a lot of that information. The hard part about the transparency website is if you're not looking for a specific individual and you're looking for a job category, most cities don't call it the same thing. So like the senior director, because we've been looking at that, some people call it senior services director or senior services DIR, and they don't put the ECDR on it. And so every single time they do it, you have to select. I think I was going through, I didn't count it up, but I think I selected 25 different titles that seemed like what we were after to try and get a good feel for what it's going to cost.
And I was just gonna say, it all depends on what the job description is behind it. Unless you sit and read every job description, you don't get it.
And TechNet is better for that because they have less categories and you have to select one of their categories. And there's a job description tied to that category. And so it makes it easier.
Question.
Oh, we'll go Phil then Brenda.
On the senior center, the county's kind of forcing that, right? Because they've selected, what is it, 4 in the county?
We got a letter from them that said they're going to support 3 senior centers.
3, us.
They have not picked.
I was gonna say, I don't think they-
We're supposed to let them know in July if we're interested. And then by October, they'll let us know if we're selected for the 26 budget year.
Okay, so it won't affect this, if we were not selected, then we would lose the half of the salary from the person that directs. And that would be an expense that we'd have to pick up next year.
Correct.
If we wanted to have a director continue at the senior center, it'd be 100% us.
Correct. And we have been working on a deal for us to potentially take it over earlier. To just kind of start that transition as opposed to waiting until the next year.
And I know it's Brenda's term, but it has to do with this, so I don't know.
Brenda, do you want to go ahead?
Yes. I just wanted to understand the second employee at the senior center is will be with Zella. She's not being replaced, but you're adding someone, so there will be 2.
So no, it would just be the one senior center director position.
So Zella's retiring?
Zella works for Weaver Human Services.
Okay,
And so if we did take this on, that's part of what we're talking about, then we'd be having all those conversations. What we're first trying to do is find out what it costs to have that position for budgetary purposes before we decide what we're doing over there.
so there wouldn't be two city employees to run the senior center.
Not at this point. That's not what we're proposing.
If the county gives us, I know it's a fairly good chunk of money, but if the North Ogden City is taking that senior center on 100%, how are we going to deal with Pleasant View and Harrisville? And are we going to do like the swimming pool used to, where there's a little bit of cost if you're not a resident? I know these are probably questions that haven't been answered yet, but that will all affect that budget.
Yeah, and those are questions we're trying to find the answers to. So if you have other questions like that, please pass them along, because that one specifically, we have thought, how do we share this equally, or how do we make sure other communities are participating? Because if there's only 3, then you're not capturing it. I mean, just Pleasantview, Harrisville, and us is only 3 of the cities in the county, and there's 12, 14 cities. I don't know.
It's
But-
really close to the Ogden city line, I'm just saying.
Yeah, we would need to be looking at Far West, Merritt, Slaterville, Plain City, and that's kind of what the county was trying to do, is see if everyone could participate in something. And that kind of fell apart, and so they're trying to now look at what's the maximum number of senior centers they can financially support, and how do we then get additional resources from other cities based on resident usage and things like that.
So we need a backup plan, basically.
Yeah, I mean, with what the county will give us, it will have a net positive on our budget. It would cost us less than what we're paying now a year, based on what we think salaries are going to be. But like we bring up, I mean, we just replaced the roof over there. That's not something the county helps with. That's what
We have to do the parking lot too.
Parking lot's getting built right now. We need to redo the wood floor. So there's just a lot of things that are rolled into that the city has always been paying for. Like, we've always done all the maintenance, all the cleaning, all that stuff. And the county provided half of the salary for the person, as well as the full cost for all the food, the lunches that were being done over there.
Well, and if it's going to be extended to further people coming, there will be that much wear and tear or use of the building things that North Ogden City covers.
And it is already, I mean, in theory, right now, already, it's anyone in the county, anyone in the state can go into that facility who's, over the age of 55 and be entitled to all the stuff that's provided over there.
That kind of ties into the next survey that they're working on about the philosophy of recreation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the black and white of it, the senior center is a recreation facility. And so I think we have to have at some point that, as we have the discussion, we meaning the city has that discussion about what is the city's philosophy on subsidizing recreation. Senior center has to be a part of that, and I think we have to fairly ask. I mean, it's like if you sign up for football in North Ogden, the rate that you pay is lower if you're a North Ogden resident. Because there's an understanding that to some degree you're already paying taxes to help make that happen. And so, I don't know if you're not a North Ogden resident and your city doesn't participate in helping fund the senior center, that there's a membership fee that you have to pay, $5 a month or whatever. I don't know, so that it's not the North Ogden taxpayer who's putting subsidizing the northern part of the county and residents, seniors in other cities who are not paying in to support the senior center, that the senior recreation center that they use and utilize and wear and tear and everything else. They ought to be helping to cover the cost of that, either through their taxes from the city or through a membership fee. But I think that's part of the broader discussion that council's gonna have to have.
What are the odds that Weaver County will pick ours?
Pretty high, I think.
I would say pretty high. We're the only
What
thing
does that
north.
mean? That
So-
they'll,
In the letter they sent out, if they select us, it'll be somewhere close to $80,000 of funding they'll send our direction.
Right now we have 43,
36.
36.
and they would no longer provide Zella, we would use a city employee.
Yeah, we would be expected to fill that role and keep the center open 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
We still have to manage that, right, though?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Which is what we do right now too. We get 36 from them, but we also pay 36.
No, we pay 36. And then we do the building unit.
yeah, right now, because it's a Weaver Human Services employee, we pay half of her salary and benefits to them. But then we're responsible for all the building maintenance, cleaning and supplies they need over there.
We get a contribution.
If they choose it though, and they give us 80,000, will North Ogden be responsible for now taking over the food and all of that? Will that be included in that 80,000?
They would do 80,000 plus the lunches or
Okay.
or dinners. So they're not gonna eliminate their Meals on Wheels program. And or the senior lunches that are provided at the senior
They're basically
centers.
just saying, you guys now run it. We don't want to have to worry about the
Yeah.
employee and any of that.
Yeah, and it will include us actually going and picking up the lunch instead of it being delivered. So,
Not cost.
Yeah, that's what. It's not making it, figuring it out that way.
So do we have any recommendations on senior center?
I think it's premature,
Yeah,
especially where they don't know who's picked. I don't know.
and it's in the budget
Feels
for
like-
next year already anyway.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be
that would be more of that
26
next year big
before.
discussion.
But as John mentioned a minute ago, though, there is talk with the county that maybe we would accelerate that change. And if the county says, okay, we'll change we're gonna let you change you, we're gonna pick you, you can change it sooner. Here's the 80,000. Well, then we're now having to pick up the lunches and all of those kinds of things. That might happen more quickly is what I gathered from what John said. So it might be before next year's budget.
Furthermore, I mean, like, do we want to make recommendations based on if we don't get picked then? Because if we get picked, then that's what we're doing, and what the county would, I mean, I don't know. Can all help me what I'm not saying, because I'm like, okay, so if the county picks us, that's something we're gonna have to do, but they'll be giving us 80,000, so in a sense, that money will already be coming in to cover the salary of whoever's doing that from the county. So that's not gonna.
Well,
I
and let's
think
say
this
we're not
logistics
picked.
Sounds more, yeah, now if we're not
And
picked,
we're not subsidized by the county.
yeah, that's. a
Then the
different
question
discussion.
is-
Do we wanna have that?
Does it, I mean, it's something I've thought about, and for me, and speaking just for me, does it remain only a senior center? Or does it become a more broadly
Community
used,
center?
a community center? Where the senior organization has preference for scheduling. But that it is open to the community for more broadly used things that it isn't just what is it? Is it 55 and over or 65?
it's 55.
55 and over.
But anybody
I
can
shouldn't
rent
go
it
over.
now, can't they, and use it?
Yes, yeah.
You don't have to
But see,
be,
the senior group, because the senior center is a building run by the
Yes.
city.
yes.
The senior group is an organization, a
Mhm.
501c3, aren't they, John?
Mhm.
A 501c3 who gets basically free use of the building,
Okay,
right? They don't have to pay. So like when they have their dinners and their dances, they're not renting the hall. They just get to use it. Well, if the county is no longer helping subsidize that cost, do we leave that arrangement like that, or do we open it up more broadly and say, well, if the taxpayer base as a whole is contributing to that building, does the taxpayer base as a whole also get that? So that, you know, somebody who wanted to have a piano recital in the middle of winter could book it and use it without having to pay a fee.
That has to be managed too, though.
It does, it requires a person.
Well, we'll have that, I mean, there'll be someone who runs it, and that would include scheduling and all of that, right? That would be,
But if it becomes a community piece, then is it managed by parks?
so the senior 501c3, are they getting donations? Are they bringing money into their 501c3? And if so, where does that go?
They use it to pay for their events.
Okay.
To pay for, when Casey Kunimura was doing the metallurgy and all that stuff. It pays for paint supplies, for crafting supplies,
Gotcha.
for all of the things necessary to carry out their
Provided to the
events.
senior.
That's what they use the money, but they don't pay the city anything for the maintenance, for electricity and utilities and, you know, the new parking lot or anything. There's no payment that's made like that to the city to help offset those costs. And this year's the first year, this last year was the first year that any of the surrounding communities contributed. Mayor Berube negotiated really hard with Pleasant View, and they
They need
contributed
to.
15 grand.
Yeah.
Directly
We need
to the
start doing
city.
more of that.
But yeah, is it 5,000 a year, John, that the group gets?
So Pleasant View gives them 5,000 a year.
But that was used for their crafts and everything. That did not do anything to offset the building and its costs. That was given to the group. Now it's, did they
12.
pull the 5,000 from?
Nope, they added 12. So they give us 12 and them 5.
And them 5. So at least they're contributing somewhat. Now Harrisville doesn't. We have seniors that come as far away as Logan for some of the activities that they do. Anyway, it's a,
It would be interesting to know, you know, what the population is that comes into
Yeah.
the senior center, so.
and
I
if the
mean,
county shuts it,
The seniors using it, you know, that's a different discussion. I almost see it, you know, if we ended up taking it, being used as a community center, but run like a rec center almost, you know, where you buy, if you're a senior and you have a game night, because I think that's, you know, I think that's really a cool thing. And I know we've got a lot of seniors who live alone, and it gives them,
My
it's,
mother-in-law would never have survived after.
yeah, so
Her husband's
I think
death.
that's a huge
Never
benefit to our
have survived.
community. So how that works out, you know, that's a big discussion in my head that I haven't thought really about, but I can see, you know,
well, philosophically, it's the same for football and baseball and basketball.
yeah,
Because
but,
there
and I've
are
told you
kids.
guys how I feel about that. I also feel about that too. So I, you
Right.
know, but I also don't know that I have all the solutions. I can
There's a
see that
counter.
there's ways to, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's a big
a
discussion.
difficult.
thing. That's all the things.
So-
Yeah, I was like, the senior center, I think that's a
No,
big
yeah.
discussion and I mean, we are the budget committee, and I think if we wanted to, when are they expecting to come up with an answer or pick?
The Weaver,
county?
so they're not gonna pick till October,
Okay.
whatever. That's why we're trying to just work a deal out in the sense that if we're pretty confident that if we apply, we will be selected. And so the conversation is, well, what if we just transitioned early?
Well,
Because for us, it's a net increase.
Right.
Because we will get more money, we think, than what it costs to hire an employee, which would then help
Mm-hmm.
with the maintenance and the supplies and the cleaning. So,
well, if we wanted to discuss this further, I mean, I'd be okay if we planned a meeting somewhere down the road where we could all come a little more prepared with now knowing what that is, and maybe we could have Zella come in and talk to us about what she does and what she sees the senior center provide, and I don't know, just an idea. I'm just throwing it out there.
and she is aware that the county is looking at this. They haven't notified everyone that they're not gonna be employed or anything. They're just, it's one of those things that the county is doing. or it's Weaver Human Services, not technically the county. It's a two county organization technically.
All right.
All right, so when I look at a lot of these budgets, looks like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, our biggest increase is in the motor pool, is that right? Or is it in another area?
Yeah, I think so.
And then that affects everybody else because it gets allocated out, right? So, and I don't know if there's anything in there we need to look at. It looks like everything's pretty much needed, but
Which department are you looking
the
at?
motor pool. Do you have that to pull the yellow sheet on?
Oh, there.
I can pull it up. I'm just.
I'm not sure that I'm just looking at big dollar items. That's the one where we have the snow plow, but they have to get, which. Those two are the big ticket items. So when it says a 6-year term, does that mean it's gonna be leased? They're leasing those. So that's per year. Are there any offsets to that come in? Like the trucks, like the Tundra? Is that net? Cause don't we just trade those in, the vehicles?
Yeah, so that, all the vehicle exchanges, it is, that, the whole thing is offset. But we have to show it.
Yeah,
As
so
a
that is
expense.
gonna be offset,
The whole thing.
okay.
So like on the snowplow, the one that we'll get rid of, we might get enough to pay the first year of lease. Well, no, we wouldn't, sorry. We might get $10,000 out of it. But it won't be enough to offset the full cost, and then we have the 5 more years of payments at the full bore with no offset.
But this doesn't show the offset on there, so. Then you've got the dump truck. Is that gonna be outright purchased?
This one.
Do we buy new ones on those? Or do we get used ones, or
There's
is
one.
This one is a new one.
is a new one?
Yeah, the last one we had, I think was
The last one we
when we
Mhm.
purchased it in 2003,
is 5.
2005. So it was several years old at that point, and we've now got almost 20 years out of it. And
So
Are the police cars on there?
That's in police motor.
that's in the police. But I think they were being offset too. I mean, didn't they just exchange those every so often and?
Because they were talking about they were 4 and 5 year, every 4 years, and this year they need 5 cars rather than 4 or something.
Here it is, police. But they've got,
The difference of
they've had an
marked
increase of,
cruiser versus not is a lot more.
Yeah. They've got to add
It's like
to
they
it.
add all those flashy lights on them.
but that really wasn't that much because most of their increase in the allocations from the motor pool, which is all the other things that's being bought here, so. I don't know if we have any recommendations there, just thought I'd bring it up. Doesn't sound like it, but.
I don't have any, only because for me, the question is if we don't do, say, one of the snow plows,
Yep,
and then we end up with another hard, the
Yeah.
last 2 winters have been pretty. And then we end up not being able to clear roads.
I just wanted to bring it up for discussion.
Oh, sure.
In case we had some ideas on that. I agree, so maybe that's a recommendation that we say, hey, yeah, we agree with all of that. It's necessary. It could be a positive recommendation. I don't know.
I think that's what we mostly got, which I'm excited about. We mostly have positive, I think, it's.
Yeah. I did think we still were talking about phones, weren't we?
Yeah,
I think that's,
I know it's probably not popular, but I think that the phones is something that the city needs to get a handle on. And no other industry I've worked in 25 years, 35 years, where I've had to deal with personal communication devices have I seen anything this lax?
And in those industries, have you had? I mean, police officers, I think, is kind of outside of the scope of that, because I don't think you'd want a police officer giving their personal cell phone out to folks.
But. How do I say this? The technology exists that I have my Zoom phone number on my personal device, but it's separated by a policy that manages the parts of that they allow to happen. So I receive a reimbursement, but they don't buy me a phone. I buy my own phone. If I want a new phone, I buy a new phone. As long as it runs their apps, that's all that they care. And
Steph?
Yeah,
I don't mean to be disagreeable, but my husband worked for a company for 40 years that required a cell phone because he had to take his turn being on call. So we had the option of having a personal cell phone, but company was required, gave him a cell phone. We opted not to have a personal. He had to be careful what he used the phone for, especially as far as Google searching, because if you search porn, you lose the phone. But the company required that he have a phone. So they paid they bought the new phone, they paid the bills. To me, that doesn't seem so far out there. I can see where if some of them are in a truck with a radio, but if they're going to be expected to be on call at all, I think that the city either pays half of their phone bill or the city provides them with a phone.
And I think it's a good question. I think it's totally fine to tell the council.
I guess my point is that I would like the city council to have a much more written plan rather than every other year you get a new phone and whatever. I think it needs to be
Better policy.
a better policy and
a
procedure.
clear policy.
However you elect to do that, I'm just saying to address a lot of the concerns. I can tell you that they're addressed by the technology that providers have to address that. And so your separation, I'm required to be on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, every day out of the year, but that doesn't mean that I can separate it.
Aren't there phones now that can have two numbers on them?
Yeah, that's any phone can have two numbers on it, depending on your carrier.
I've done it that way for 3 or 4 years, and I've switched back to 2 separate phones because it's not always flawless. And with grammar requests being thrown into it, I'd rather keep the pictures of my family and everything on a separate device and not have a device that can be.
But if that's the case, then maybe you don't replace your phone every 2 years. Maybe it's a little bit longer.
What if we recommend
A
that
policy.
the city council look at their phone policy and procedure and look at new technologies available, and we'd like to see them have a good discussion about what's
Okay.
available and see if that policy and procedure needs to be updated.
And I think long-term, it will save you money, long-term, and have a long-term plan.
Well, I think for sure it's cheaper to do it that way.
I know one of the concerns with the public works employees is just the environment that they have to be in. And I mean, if I were working for a company and they said, you're gonna have to take your phone down into the ditch, even though we have a second SIM card in your phone, that you've got to take the phone you paid for down into the ditch, I'd tell them, see ya.
My husband
Steph.
worked a job too, but he had a phone and he just took care of it.
You know,
Well,
Yeah,
my
the same-
husband was a mechanic and there's a limit to what you can do to take care of it.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I think your recommendation was excellent.
and maybe the policy is that they aren't replaced as often.
Yeah.
In my company, we have nationwide. I don't remember what the last number was. It's somewhere on the order of 4,500 cell phones for our company nationwide. And we replace them every 3 years. And they get replaced with, and I think Morthogden already does this, but if, you know, the latest phone right now is like the iPhone 15, anybody getting a new phone this year, a 13 is the newest phone that they could get. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brenda
that's
had
good.
a
And
comment, Brenda?
no,
Oh, I'm sorry. Just to say that I think your recommendation to the city council as far as policy and looking at what they have is excellent. I don't know that we can, I mean, we can give ideas, but we can't force
Exactly.
them or
Yeah.
make them use a certain thing.
And I just wanted to give a little clarification on the phone thing. If you go and look at the budget that we're in right now, I don't think there's one line up cell phone line item that's over 50%. Because we don't just replace phones, just to replace phones, like, so, but we have to budget. Or just in case, like, because we have to do that so that we don't have to go and ask the council and. But hey, we have to
Do a budget.
So, yeah, but
Budget amendment.
yeah, if you go and look at our line items, it's like most of them are under 50% of what the actual budget is. Because we don't replace phones like that all the time. I mean, I think this year total in all of the phones in the whole, I mean, I think we have over 35 phones. I think we replaced 4 phones this year, so. And
But you had budgeted for more than that if it were necessary.
we try to budget like 2 department per department, just in case we have to. So it's one of those things, yeah, I think there was a little misunderstanding of that. And then the other thing is it is the city's phone. It's not the employee's phone. Like, we don't buy them a phone for them. Like, if they choose to leave or anything else, the city owns that phone.
They could choose to buy it from the city.
Yeah.
Okay. Phones, snowplows.
I think we're okay with the purchase of that, and then I think we have the loader in there too, which is a big cost. And I think the only question on that was whether to outright purchase it or lease it. So that might be. But I don't know.
And you can look at that one, right? If we lease it. Like we said, the payment is definitely a lot lower because but you don't own a piece of equipment. Or you can purchase it or.
If you lease to own.
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, it all depends upon what kind of revenues you have coming in for
Yeah.
each year, whether you can afford to outright purchase one, or if you can only afford to do the lease to own, I don't know. That was just a thought that I had, but
Okay,
I don't know if that's something we need to bring up or not.
well, I mean, we can put that into, I've made a note of it, so we can decide if we want that in our recommendation and how for that. So that it's getting the point across that we're trying to make.
What was on your list, Chris?
Is there any other big questions we need to get through before we start working on recommendations?
I was just gonna say, there's one other thing we talked about, and that is that, I guess, for all the broken trash receptacles on the street.
Yes, and I plan on that being one of our recommendations for sure. I think 50/50 is. Brenda, how do you feel about that?
I actually am one of those people that says I didn't break it, the truck did. So I'm not sure why it's my responsibility to take care of it. I've had my same garbage can for 35 years. I have had one handle replaced. That's it. So,
I've had
you know, I
the same
get that
well.
it would be fair to pay 50/50, but on the other hand, I'm not abusing it. So I'm not necessarily in full agreement with that.
I understand that. I
I
also
appreciate
think,
your comment. The drawback is that I've heard many communities that go to you buy your own. People still dump those things in the middle of the night when you put it out there, and all of a sudden yours is now gone. And so then you get to buy them, and it creates not a good situation. So
No, I said I was fine with
um,
50/50. I didn't say you had to
Yeah,
buy
I
it
think,
all.
yeah, I think the 50/50 was kind of the discussion if we are, that's what I had down as our recommendation last time is the 50/50. It makes, I mean, I can see that if you had to buy one, you're gonna take better care of it. Some people don't take care of them, but
and
I don't
sometimes,
know.
and sometimes they get broken because they do.
And that's a big, I mean, that's $50,000 that we're talking
So
on the budget for next year.
But yeah, I haven't had one replaced either, so I'm not terribly worried about it. What would that cost a resident to cover half of a cost of a new garbage can? What's the new cost?
65, $70 for me.
About $40, I think it was $80 for the new cans.
Would you keep the old ones for repairs?
Not, so we
Like for
used to,
parts?
we used to, but now like most of the parts aren't replaceable, like we used to have the PVC like handles that you could replace and those kind of things, and now with the new cans, they don't have a lot of replaceable parts, they do, the wheels we can still do, so we do keep some for that.
So when you get the old ones back, what happens to them?
We take them up to a place up in Brigham City to get recycled.
And so do you get refunded money for those recycles? Not a bummer.
Not a bunch, but we don't have to take them.
That's true.
Take them to the dump.
Yes.
That's true.
We're glad for that.
Okay,
That was just a big item that maybe we can cut some costs on.
so as a committee, are we okay recommending 50/50? What do we?
Yes.
You have any thoughts, Phil?
I always have.
You're just looking at me, I'm looking for, okay.
Yeah, I think the 50/50, but I'm also comfortable. It's in the 20 years I've lived here in the city. I've had, I think, one can replaced. Because the can that I received originally was an older used can and it just ended up breaking.
Just use this.
Yeah, but again, the philosophical side of me is, there are things in every city, in ours and every city, where we spread the cost out across all residents so that any single resident doesn't bear the full burden of what a particular cost is. We do that with garbage, right? Some people, you have a household of 8. And, young, active family, they produce a whole lot more garbage than my wife and I do. And we pay the same that they do. So we're subsidizing that family and I'm okay with that. But some people aren't, right? We've had individuals come to council over the years who want to see a garbage system that is more, in fact, it was recommended by the committee somewhat last year. There was a recommendation that you only get charged for the number of times that your can gets put out on the street. And that we would ask Republic Services or whoever are, and I think the technology is out there for them to do that. But, if they came onto my cul-de-sac and only 3 of us had our cans out that day, only 3 of us would get charged for that day and the others would not. But there's all kinds of other problems that come along with that. And so in a nutshell, I'm fine with putting it all in front of John's house, rolling it downhill.
Yeah, see,
I'm okay with the 50.
I'm okay with just based
Yeah.
on my personal experience, like not needing to replace it, and if I had to, I'm okay
Now, the
with
moment
that.
that gets put in, if council did that, is when my can would break.
Yeah, but I'm also okay just keeping it the way it is. I don't, so.
Does $50,000 make a difference in the budget overall? That's the question.
Same with phones, but the
Well,
reason why I'm saying that is it went up 50,000 because is it because of increase in population, or I remember you saying why it was going up higher.
We're replacing cans at a higher rate. Just because of the material.
No, you're good.
Because the quality's
Yeah, they're just not made as good as they
kiboshed,
used to
just
be. Well, and your question about does 50,000 matter? Another way to look at that is 50,000 in a truth and taxation hearing is a little less than 2% tax increase. Right? That roughly 2.7 million a year in property tax. So we're looking at 27,000. So 54,000 would be a 2% tax increase. I wonder what would happen if we recommended a 2% tax increase.
Well,
Right.
and the city does a great job because you manage it. I lived in unincorporated part of Weaver County, and so you're left at the rate. And I was paying $90 a month to have a guy come once a week and pull my trash. So the city does a great service by managing that. So do you increase your tip fee $2 a month to offset that, and we don't have this trash barrel discussion?
Well, and that is what we normally would do, is basically say, okay, it's 50 cents a month if the city pays the full cost. It's 25 cents a month if we pay half and half, right? Because really it comes on your utility bill under the solid waste line.
Right, and
So-
so. And that's my question is this a recommendation for a budget, or do we say that we think your solid waste fee goes out to cover this?
Right now, it's set to cover garbage cans at the city replacing them at full, so we would be reducing.
But that's coming out of city budget as opposed to
Mhm.
paying the utility fees. Coming on the utility bill.
I think it's a good recommendation to recommend the council have that philosophical discussion.
So we thought 50-50, and also
Yeah.
we could see
We can see benefits to
both,
both.
but felt that it needed a discussion.
It's worth
Feels it
the-
needed- Okay.
I'm gonna maybe get you to smile, but it's worth a robust discussion. It's a word to make sure.
There's a lot of words that we can make on, but this is really only funny. And what else was on your list?
Going back through my notes, come on. Did I not bring that with me?
We did agree with the, police system.
Yeah, and so if we want to start, right now, I'm just waiting to see if anybody still has questions about the budgets, and then I'm ready to go into the recommendations, and we'll start with the first meeting, and I've got those. Which, do we have any more questions about the budget, or are we ready to move on to recommendations?
And like I said, depending upon, when you see the budget with the revenue versus the budget going in, and we have to have a balanced budget, then that's when,
We might have more. comments.
then we might come up with some more. But right now, if it's all affordable, it's affordable, right?
Well, let's go through our recommendations, and then we can decide if we're gonna want to meet again and when that would be. All right,
I mean, I know these guys, I know budgeting and I know how it works. And most people are pretty good at coming in with what they really need. They're not,
I agree. I mean, I've watched the city do it for 5 years, and I'm still learning it.
I've
but
done it for 40 years. And I
Watch
know
the
people
process.
try to be very careful, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched just the city, I've never really had to do any kind of budgeting like this in my life, but watching the city
Yeah.
thoroughly the last 5 years, there's been years that I disagree with things that are brought forward and agreed with things, but this budget season right now, I feel really comfortable with. I think we have really great recommendations that are generally good discussions that I think could contribute to how the council is looking at this, and I think that that's really important. I'm happy with what we discussed. So, moving forward, then we'll start with the enterprise funds and administration was the first presentation we had. And one of the recommendations was to use the flash vote more. So that as they're preparing to renew with that, they'll know that it's really effective, and I've already seen an uptick in flash votes come through to me, but.
I guess I need to sign up for that because I've never had one. I didn't sign up for
I
it.
mean, I did fill out a ton, and then in the last 2 weeks, I think I've gotten 2 that I've filled out. Maybe it was a month.
Makes me wonder how many people really know about that. I brought it up to other people and had no idea.
The last
We
one had
tried
quite a few.
really hard to get it out there, and
I'm sure, and I guess I just didn't know.
the responses, John, this last one, there were a little over 300 respondents,
307, yep.
which is a pretty good turnout for a population of our size.
maybe under there, we could recommend that they do,
Another
take a
push to-
small portion of the monthly magazine that says sign up for flash votes. If that was just a constant in the monthly magazine, sign up for city flash votes here, you know. And if we're doing flash
We
votes,
heard you, the city asked a
Yeah.
question, this is how we respond.
okay, so flash votes,
And put it in the magazine.
that would be, okay, so help me with this, flash votes,
Use it more.
use it more. Is it effective?
What's the cost of it?
We have signed up, so the city has paid for a 3-year and they've got one more year after this, don't they? Or
This
is it
year.
the
and
last
one-
year,
This year and one more.
one more.
So at the
And
end of
so-
25 is when it would be renewed.
But in our discussion, we didn't feel like it was being used as much as they could have because we paid for they can do unlimited flash votes, so we'd like to see that really used. I think was our recommendation. And
So
then,
better efficient use of the fat flash. Oh,
I think we'll get more people using it if it comes out more, right?
yeah,
I
'Cause I know every time I get one, I throw it out on my Facebook feed and I throw it out on a couple of North Ogden feeds. That, you know, get out to several thousand people.
Yeah, people are doing that. I mean, you're like me, I'm living in the non-social media.
Right,
The only place I'm gonna see it is in the magazine that I
right.
skip through all the ads.
Well, and
then
if you don't
maybe find
sign up,
something.
then you don't get the email or the text
Yeah.
telling you there's a
Right.
new survey for you to take.
And when we signed up for it, they did send an invite out to people where they had some cell number data. So they did send text that said, hey, your community's doing this. I think they do that once a year, but I'll double check.
Give myself.
What would it be worth maybe recommending to council that they do that again, except put it in the utility bill? That for 1 month, they have a sheet of paper that, you know, can have a QR code, it can have a web address. It can have a whatever, and we send it out to
Well, I
every
almost- yeah.
household.
almost
I don't
want-
get a
if you
mailed
could even,
utility
like,
bill.
If you could generate one of those codes that you take a picture of, we put a QR code, you put it at the grocery stores, North Ogden's flash vote, sign up. Just where people are going and they're seeing things and it's really easy to go, oh, I wanna do that, and you just quickly. You know, when you come into the offices,
I like to put it in the magazine, but the problem is the magazine goes everywhere and you're gonna end up messing with your code.
The great thing about flash vote is that when the results come in. It can, because when you sign up, you've got to put your address in. The administrator can sort it and say local residents only, and it filters out all the other votes.
That's good.
And so we only get the voices of people who put in a North Ogden address. You can sort it by gender, you
Yeah.
can sort it by age, you can sort it by all kinds
and
of
knowing
stuff.
we can do that, I'd rather push to get as many people.
Yeah.
Voting as possible, I mean, if we were doing pool votes or senior citizen votes, I wouldn't care if Pleasant View was in there, like, it'd be interesting, you know, some of the surroundings just. In some of them, but that's cool that we can do that.
Steph, that's a nice thought, but I have gotten 3 flash vote surveys from Ogden City. My address is not in Ogden City. I didn't sign up for it. I don't know what the issue is with that.
Because when my address pops up, it goes to Ogden, not North Ogden. And I always have to go in and put North Ogden in there. I put my zip code in there and it automatically goes to Ogden. I don't know why.
Because
Mine does
we're,
too,
we're,
but
I'm like the post office center address.
I don't know why, you gotta take that up with Ogden, Brenda. Just kidding.
Yeah, I probably do.
But I don't know, do you get the North Ogden ones?
I did get the North Ogden one. Yes.
You just somehow get Ogden's as well.
Yep.
Brenda, do you really want me to ask this question?
That was just for you to be funny, Phil. Don't you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm dying
Okay.
here. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so we've done that one pretty much.
Okay, so on the back of that, I think that we had also discussed the magazine. And,
I looked at the recent one.
there's just not,
Sorry.
there's not a lot of information
No.
North Ogden based, and if
No.
we're gonna pay for it, how can we? Is that something that the city can negotiate more? Yeah, I don't get a lot of information. City-based information out of it. I think that was another one of our recommendations. They said we get 4 pages. I mean.
And we're paying somebody to do that, right?
Mhm.
So we pay $800 a month. We get 6 pages. It might be just economically going away. That company has stopped printing the Weaver County one, Syracuse. Roy is still going, but several communities have opted out because the people aren't advertising anymore. So they're losing the advertisers, and that's what pays for the majority of the
That's because you've
publication.
got all these other magazines now coming out with advertising in it that aren't part of it.
Well, and it's a harder, people don't have as much money, businesses don't have as much of an advertising budget as they did 2 years ago,
Yeah, that's true.
so.
Okay, so. A recommendation about the
What-
magazine would be,
I have one.
let's hear.
It was my understanding that the city has 6 pages in order to put their information, and then the rest is advertising. I realized if they put those 6 pages together, nobody's going to look at the advertising. But I think those 6 pages need to be much more detailed on city activities and what's been going on.
I agree, yeah. Somehow negotiating, or is that something that can be done with the magazine, to have the city's input, yeah, and the 6 pages together to make it more effective? Maybe we don't feel the way it's laid out is as effective as it could be in getting information to residents.
Maybe it's just me, but I read the mayor's message every month,
I read the mayor's message,
but there's a lot more going on.
but I don't know where the other 6 pages fall into there. I start to get. I'm
Is there a
terrible.
way to get a comment from
those.
each group, like the parks or the?
I mean,
Or the
I think that
police
the
or-
city has control of the 6 pages, don't they?
Yes.
So the city can choose, maybe we just tell the council to be more effective. with that.
I know
I
that
don't know.
being on here, of course, it's mainly my own fault, but I am seeing a lot more things going on that I didn't realize, like the parks, like the pickleball courts. I had no idea they were doing pickleball courts. So even stuff like that, just to get people's interest going and, knowing that there's gonna be some more pickleball courts available or.
I read the responses on that the last flash vote. And one of the responses was, see, Pleasant View is building more pickleball courts in Lowman View Park. Why isn't North Ogden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody didn't realize that it was our part.
Mhm.
I think maybe we ask council to look at maybe 3 or 4 things with the magazine. One, what's the most effective way to use it? Because maybe the way it's currently laid out isn't highlighting the North Ogden goings on and stuff as well as it could. Is there a better system? Do we keep it? Do we go to something else? And is there a way that we can emphasize city detail better?
That's good. Did you get that all down?
I've got it written
I'm
down.
writing real fast,
I've got
yeah,
it written
and
down.
I would just appreciate everybody's notes so I can kind of.
And pickleballs were in the Connection magazine a couple of times
Really?
over the last year.
I know, I started seeing all those ads and
I know it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay. So those were the flash vote and the magazine were the big ones I remember from the enterprise funds and administration presentation. Does anybody have anything else?
One of the things for your magazine is to put a QR code out there for
To the-
direct people to the city website and keep it current
Yes,
with what you wanna be advertising.
Ha ha ha. Should I laugh at the city website? That's
Yeah, you
ridiculous.
should, because it feels like it came out in 1987. I'm sorry.
Brenda, we know you love it.
We're
You're
getting a new
right.
one. The
I
council
do.
approved us to get a new one.
And I can't wait.
The hard part is we don't have a full-time person to manage the website and make it look as pretty as we wish we did.
There are volunteers out there that would.
Oh, wait a minute, Steph, I heard you volunteer.
I don't have time. I actually did I did a city newsletter for free for almost a year, a monthly one that they posted to their website and stuff. I'm happy to help. But I do think that the city would benefit from a part-time,
Might even be worth having a volunteer committee to help.
yeah, I mean, but I also think the city would benefit from a part-time, communications director, someone who just took 2 hours a
That's
day.
recommendation that we give council.
I really do think it would be, I do think it would be a benefit.
I'll do it in 3 years when I retire.
I was talking to Orem, for example, and they have 4 people in their communication office and 4 interns that come from UVU and BYU.
Yeah,
That's a good idea,
I
to bring them
think
interns
that-
in.
I bet you
Wow.
could get some young high school students who
Eight
want to
people.
do that. That's a big thing right now, but I think
Yeah.
I think having a communications, just someone dedicated to 2 hours a day to make sure the Facebook page, the website, all is giving updated information, they correspond with each other. And,
It falls in line with what we're doing here, so.
okay, or maybe we recommend,
Ooh, they're 96,000 people. Yeah, they're 4 times.
So we should have 2 then.
We should have 2. They've got 8, we should have 2.
I mean, I think,
One
Yeah.
intern and one full-timer.
Well, and I think.
I don't.
You guys get back here and-
I think taking 2 to 3 hours a day would be.
I mean, what do you guys think? You do the budgets,
would
you
be
were
a
out there
huge
working.
difference.
What do I think about what? I'm sorry.
So the hardest thing about those type of things, and Orem's a bad example, but Orem's commercial base
Yeah,
is an industrial base.
that's true.
And so, and because our commercial base is all right here, we don't get the same percentage of our general fund revenue that Orem does through sales and
Yeah, because you're on
commercial
both
stuff.
sides of I-15 and
You
we
think if our
we can
community-
just go on.
Can
but
the
yes.
city work with Weber High? I mean, you know that they've got programs and classes that are, yeah, I mean, like, companies buy people to run just their social media and do that. And I wonder if we could
be
intern
a
someone
great
from
way
the high school.
Intern, but you gotta be careful what you get.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be real specific information.
And I think then, I think you're right, because then you could have someone who could spend a little more time, but it still would probably take an hour or 2 a day of management
Yeah, that's where I say, I think
to watch
that
the
would be
intern, but.
a salary well invested for our city with the part-time. Someone who's
Should we
willing
make
to
that a
take it.
recommendation?
Well, that's up to you guys. I mean, I really.
I think so. Communication person would be excellent. It could be, John earlier talked about some of those people that have a little time in their day. So hire this finance person to help
mean-
Jamie. Maybe he or she spends a couple hours a day doing the website and the rest of it doing Jamie's help.
Yeah,
Some
somehow.
kind of a public relations too. Do you have
Yeah.
public relations?
Digital marketing.
Digital
City manager,
marketing.
city attorney, public information officer.
But really, the city's
Tree.
website and if we have a Facebook page, they should be giving the same information and it should just be updated and it's, real clean and.
Well, and I'm gonna disagree with you, Miranda.
Okay, I'm tough enough.
I know you are, and you know where I live, so. The,
You can hobble on over with a roll of toilet.
Right.
the evenings. For years, we have been managing our city communications by adding it as a task to somebody whose
Mhm.
main task is something else. And I think
Feels like my job at work.
I think the result is demonstrative of that method.
Well, and I think.
And I think it worked when we were
Speaking-
smaller, but I think at the point we are
Yeah.
now, even if it were just a part-time person, that you know, a 20-hour-a-week kind of person, and maybe it's not even that much, maybe it's a 15-hour-a-week
I
kind
don't
of
think it
position
would take a
where
lot.
that's what they do Monday through Friday. And they don't
I know
just
someone-
manage the web page, but they're managing the Twitter account, the
Yeah, if we're- whatever
Instagram
we
account.
decide we're gonna have.
You know, if Public Works calls and says we've got a major water break on 2600. There's a Twitter,
And then
there's a tweet
all-
that goes out,
Yes.
there's an Instagram post that goes out, there's a Facebook post that goes out, there's a red banner, scrolling banner on the webpage that gets immediately put up. And for those that have signed up, that we haven't gotten very good results with people signing up, the texting program. Where the city can say, okay,
Yeah,
and
just someone
send
who
out a
knows
text.
all of that, as a communication specialist
Yeah.
for the city, and make sure that the information is on all of the pages it needs to, that it looks good. You know, the city. We run like a business, it should have a style guide, it should all be really clear, that's North Ogden's, that's how it goes. But, and that's something we're lacking. I noticed that all of our departments have different website or different logo type things, and, you know, all of that, I think our city would benefit from an overhaul of a communication specialist or. Yeah, so recommendation of a communication, I'm trying to think what you said,
Communications.
communication/PR.
I found it interesting that last Saturday, there was one that went about the water leak out here on Washington, Brenna Kurtz Drive, and my wife caught it on Facebook. I signed up for the city thing, but I didn't get the text message. Sat there for 20 minutes and.
That's what it was. When I went by there, I was wondering what it was.
But it wasn't ours.
It was a Pine View
It
water
was
leak.
Pine View Water. I'm just saying, it wasn't it was not a coordinated event. I would have gone differently had I known that, but once you're there, you can't get out.
I kind of like going down to Riverdale over the weekend.
Okay,
And again, this next week, starting 8 o'clock.
so anything else that anybody can think of in enterprise funds and administration? Flash vote magazine, use of QR code, recommendation of communications/PR.
Equipment recommendations, because that included the snowplow, the loader.
I'm getting there, you're jumping ahead.
Oh, that's enterprise funds.
Is it? Oh, yeah, okay, I was
Those
thinking,
are all enterprise funds.
okay. You got Dave behind you shaking his head, so I'm like, okay.
Just put a category under
I
equipment.
think she, because we presented enterprise funds on one day and then.
Parks and Public Safety came next, so I was just waiting to jump to there. Put that in there. but-
Sorry,
Okay.
you're the chair. I'll follow you.
I was like, we can do whatever. So Parks and Public Safety. We'll start with the. Now I forgot what you just recommended.
Parks, what I just mentioned?
Yes,
Yeah, the snowplows, the front end loader.
we support.
That was motor pool, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess it was, wasn't it?
Okay, I'm gonna just write it down now, though. That
Yeah.
we support the,
The equipment requests.
All my neighbors will hate me because I recommended the tax increase because cities buying all this new equipment. That's all.
But we're not gonna recommend a tax increase.
Well, there is a huge savings that could be had. If we're talking enterprise funds and snowplow. There is a huge cost. Well, there is a huge cost that could be saved that will also have a cost with it. If we recommended that, and David, don't hit me in the back of the head, okay? It's just something that's been recommended repeatedly over the years, and so I'm just gonna throw it out there.
okay.
So just be gentle on it, okay?
Are you gonna subcontract it out?
What's that?
You might, I said, are you gonna sub it out?
No, On snow plowing, if during non-regular work hours, if we only had plows out plowing the mains. 2600 Washington, Alberta. 3100, 1700, the main roads, and all of the roads only get plowed during regular working hours. It's your responsibility to get from the main to your house, which is, if we plow all the mains, it's generally for every resident, it's a quarter of a mile or less.
So
And we would, well, the cost savings financially is that you're not paying time and a half or more, depending on the time in the day, to have all these crews out plowing every, I'm just
you gotta
saying.
know any yes.
No, I'm not saying that I
Okay.
support that. I don't support that at all. 100% I'm against it, but it gets brought up, right?
Well, you get enough.
It gets brought up
that they-
every
they're
year
counted, and I think
I
they do a
actually
great
think
job.
my road doesn't get.
I'm just saying, it gets brought up every year that when they look at, people look at the budget and go, we paid how much in overtime
Yeah.
to keep our streets plowed? There are those that say, well, let's just not do it. And it's a pretty big chunk of change that could be saved, but again, the cost of doing that is more accidents, more, right, more other issues that I think are a bigger deal than.
Well, then you're gonna have people like at the last city council meeting that come over and complain about their sidewalks having to be shoveled, and they're gonna say, well, the city can't even plow their own roads, but we still have to do our sidewalk.
All right, we're not recommending that. We're moving on.
Well, let's just double property tax and then we can have a snow removal system like Montreal.
Okay. I'm not engaging in this, but it's got problems. Okay, so. Parks and public safety, what else did we have in there that we want to recommend under those?
In parks,
No,
We support
Keeping
keeping,
the staffing the way it has
Yeah.
been.
parks under public works,
Yes.
yeah, from your report on Tuesday.
and now is when I will put in cans, I didn't write that down yet.
The street light installs, there are 3 or 4 intersections that are under safety. Just ditto everything that Chris said last Tuesday.
So they've got the parks utilities, which was 21,000. Field sport lights, is that what they're talking about, the lights? Sprinklers and restrooms, et cetera.
There were 3 different sections that they were going to put, lights. Not signals, but overhead lights so that.
Yeah, street lights, light them up.
And putting in the, cans, the trash cans, we'd like to see a discussion. About the benefits.
The increase of tipping fee versus, employee match on cost of replacement cans or whatever.
About,
It's a $50,000 line item we see that needs to be
Looked at.
looked at. Council needs to decide how they want to slice it.
and then we go back up here really quick and then.
And we don't want to
As an
outsource it,
administration, the phones real quick.
right?
I want to ask that question.
I don't like that.
I wasn't around for the comment about it. I noticed it changed. And changed back, and I just wanted to understand what happened.
Yeah.
Please, just give me,
Working
just
on the
give me the
phone
30-second answer. I don't want a 5-minute answer.
It was overwhelmingly harder than we.
Clarifications.
I thought so too,
Clarification.
probably when you're.
Never had an inch part that you
I
take.
think there's new
Uh-huh.
technology that should be.
I thought we're into it and you're like, oh no.
We had 3 trucks
And
out
then
all
that question about
12-hour days.
spam past that.
Couldn't.
if we didn't have one.
Just something to look at.
Those guys are really fast at
They
doing
make
it,
it
and
fun.
only break a couple of dumpsters every week, and that's part of what it.
Okay, Ken, we'd like some discussion about placement can.
Yeah, that's exactly what, that go happen.
In the Public Works and Parks, something that Cindy and Chris brought up was a discussion on the advantages of leasing versus purchasing equipment. From my experience, there's good reason that they lease versus purchasing, but I think that's a good discussion for council to have. To make sure the current council is comfortable with the positive, the pluses and minuses
Yeah.
for both. Yeah.
Especially now that we've got a big loader we're paying for.
Yeah.
A loader.
All right. So I've got. At this point, discussion of phone policy, update, clarification, new technology. So with the new technology, we think it's worth a discussion and to make it updated and clear. Flash vote, use it more, is it effective? Adding magazine about flash magazine, about flash vote, flash magazine. Better efficient use of it. Then in the magazine, can the 6 pages be put together, somehow make it more effective, better system layout. Layout effective, city information, these are just my scribblings, I will try, I will make them, this is what I'm gonna write down, I'm just making sure I'm getting everybody's thoughts.
I don't know how we get street maintenance for only 95,000 a year.
That was the cost to get the project figured out, wasn't that the, figure out the real cost of fixing all of the streets that are
Dave?
at 95,000?
Okay, see what.
It just says QPR patching potholes,
So that's just our minor.
the minor, because
Yeah.
that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, so that's like filling potholes, doing some minor patching. That's the 95,000.
Okay, so then I have use of QR code, I think that's an easy way to direct people to information if he wants to use.
I love your idea of having that QR code. We know Lee's will let us do it, right?
Yeah.
That'll be an easy, but if Smith's.
Put
would
it on
let
the
us,
bulletin, you can put it.
have like an A-frame on there. that
Creamery,
says have-
anywhere, we can put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Sign up.
Have an
Maybe the
opinion.
Nelsons would even put
Holy
that.
cow, the UPS store, you can't even get in and out of that place. It's like, are you kidding?
Have an
Yeah,
opinion
something
about
right there
North
in the
Albany
window,
goings on, sign up to give your
Yeah.
feedback and.
It'd just be a simple
Great idea.
little sign with the QR code, it's gonna take up a lot of people, I think. Cause once they sign up, those flash votes come to them, so
Once
then it's up to them to fill it out, but at least it's getting to them. Recommendation of communications / PR, employee,
part-time.
yes, part-time for sure, I think that's all that's needed. We support the equipment request.
And I would
From
put,
Public
I would put
Works.
the lease together with that,
Okay.
because I think that was all motor
We support the
school,
equipment request and would like to see discussion on leasing versus purchasing equipment.
i.e. the loader. I think that's the only one that's really, well, the snowplows we've already agreed, right?
At least-
Yeah.
We support keeping parks under public works. We support additional streetlights. We would like to see discussion about replacement cans. Replacement garbage cans. It's a $50,000 line item that's worth a broader discussion.
Yeah, 50-50 split, question mark.
Okay. I will check my emails this week. I will open up my computer. When I get home, my brain's full, but I will do that because I will watch for this and work on putting this together this weekend.
And did you put in there that we support the police department to get the live scan?
Yeah.
rather
Oh,
than-
no,
What's it called?
Live scan thing
Called live scan fingerprint,
at Flock.
yes.
Who was complaining? I just saw it on PSL. Oh, was it St. George? But they're wanting to do the something similar to that. Live people are complaining for the same reason, security and
Well, yeah.
Live stream
registration process,
fingerprint?
right?
It
Called
is,
live
it becomes a
scan.
misunderstanding of how it works, and there's always a concern with, government,
Brenda, do you have any ads?
but most people don't understand.
Nope, sounds good.
How much information we give up every day.
But I do think
Good.
the mayor had a great comment at the last city council meeting, and maybe we need to bring that up too. Is that the company that we're working with, they don't have anybody come in and do any kind of an audit on their system.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great comment that really needs to be looked at.
Cause that was the presentation. I
It
mean,
was.
maybe,
Now we know about it.
yeah, we know that, but how do I word that? I mean,
I don't think that's a budget issue, but I
yeah,
think
that's
that
where I'm
was,
like, I don't know that that's a budget issue or I'd like to.
but public comments would be
educate. I mean,
perfect for that.
I'd
Well,
like,
it is part of the budget because we're paying for their service.
well, we're paying for it, but I think that it's the city council's responsibility to educate and
Called due
communicate.
diligence.
I'd like to see them. I mean, I think that's an overall, that falls into, I think, our discussion of the PR person, the communications. How easy would it be to put out if we had a communications person? Maybe like, we think that this would be great to put out there. We are missing recreation and our ideas about,
Flash on recreation.
no, I know that you were discussing that we would like to see the city have a discussion about recreation being self-funded, and these are some of our ideas on how to continue to allow or to continue to support youths who may not be able to afford it under that circumstance. That was one that was in my head rolling around. Because I thought we had some really good ideas on how to.
And do people have the ability or want to contribute to having certain specific recreation activities?
Yes,
Charity
and how
days,
they can,
sidewalk painting, whatever the case may be.
how we
You have an
can.
interest,
Mhm,
you have $20, I want to donate to that cause, great.
yeah,
But there's
or
no way
even
to,
monthly, I do an extra $1 a month to youth sports or charity days or.
but there's no way to do that effectively or easily as a citizen.
And if they start implementing something like that, that's a way to then start to look at how, because then you can see how many people are involved or are
And
participating, if it's effective enough to start making
if I'm
recreation.
spending $3 or $5 a month, I'm suddenly gonna become more interested in what the city's telling me about.
Mhm.
John?
Yeah.
And if you do, at Christmas time, how you go pick a name off of a tree, maybe you could do the same thing.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of different ways
Yeah.
to.
In last council meeting, I thought I briefly heard something about, a transportation utility fee being
Yeah.
discussed.
There was that discussion. The state has confirmed it is allowable.
Right.
The cost to get one implemented based on who we talked to with a consultant is about $110,000.
To implement it?
To
We can't
implement.
just implement it?
Well, to implement it, you have to have a study. And for an engineering firm to go out and evaluate all of your roads
Good.
and give you a thorough study that will pass constitutional muster, we were already planning on doing this survey, that where's our roads at, but the cost for the actual study is $70,000.
That won't go over.
Well, so
No,
in
you're
theory, you
right.
could get that through the utility fee, but now it's just more money you're charging residents.
Yeah.
And our initial thing, and I think we said this in the meeting, is that it's probably a $10 to $15 a month number that we're talking about. Just based on where
$3 we did years ago.
no, because costs
So much.
they're so much higher. So, and we've got some pretty big, a good example is at 3100, where if you're heading westbound, that east side of the intersection is crowned really bad for about half that block. And it's probably a full deconstruct, dig it down 18 inches and rebuild in that section. And so there's just some big projects that need to be done that are gonna be expensive when they're done, so.
We're expecting about $20 million.
How much?
Not a big study, 20 million. To do all of our roads.
Doesn't surprise me.
So if you look at it, I mean, in most road study or most road rotations are about every 20 years, and you're looking at about $1 million. Or close to $1 million a year.
So so the conversation with the council is, are they okay with imposing that sort of thing in a year? Because that's about how long it would take us to do it all. And because we don't want to go and pay for the study if we're not going to charge the fee. So. Yeah, at $3, we were getting 240 a year.
Yeah, I just calculated about 1.2 million a year, you'd collected $15.
Yeah.
It's like half of what we collect in property taxes.
Yeah.
You know, road utility.
We need just to have vehicles now, just help.
The ironic thing is that it's more of the elements and the weather that wear our roads out, because we don't have a lot of semi-traffic and stuff that'll pit and cause major issues. It's the weather that causes the damage to our roads for the most
My
part.
chief loves it.
I like it
So where can I move then?
8% grant.
It's Southern Utah, the roads do okay. Although they do get extreme heat, but asphalt performs fairly well in extreme heat.
What about San Diego or Hawaii?
Hawaii, yes, move there.
Okay,
Then
And
then
you
I'm
wanna
gonna come
visit?
visit you, Brenda.
okay.
So, John, do you think we can get, I guess, do we need to check with the council member or the mayor to see if we can get on the agenda as a presentation?
So I think the people who are setting the agenda are in the room. We do check with the mayor, but I think for Tuesday, we had talked about making sure that you had some time as a group to
Okay.
present. We don't need your slides until that day,
Okay.
but we do need them emailed to us, or bring your own computer that you can plug into with an HDMI.
Okay.
Do you think it would be beneficial to give them the slides so they can look at them before they come and be
What I'm
prepared?
thinking is I'm gonna try to get it done by Sunday. If I can get everybody's notes, I'll be able to work on it Friday and Saturday, get it to you guys Saturday night. We can all just scan it, give me feedback. Cause honestly, I'd love it to be in the packet. If we can get it added to the packet. So do you just need a PDF? Is that the easiest?
Yep.
Okay, so I can just get you a PDF, and then what I'd like to do also is maybe get some printed off and the council members. And then
Sounds great.
whoever's
So we're gonna
presenting.
narrow this down to like a one pager or?
I don't think, I mean, I may be able to do it in one page, especially if I'm just doing the words and like the city logo, but I don't need it doesn't need to be fancy. Who knows?
In that room, I typically on your slideshows, you're gonna want maybe 4 to 6 lines because of how those screens are
Okay.
distance wise. And then I always tell people general rule is 5 minutes per slide. So if you're trying to do a 10-minute
Yeah,
presentation,
I'm
2
just gonna do-
slides.
I mean, I would just like these clearly written out so that they can see them as we're talking through them. I don't think there needs to be much more. I mean, I could put a picture of a park or something. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think just simple,
Yeah.
so it's easy to follow along and easy to see exactly what our recommendations are. So
Question.
maybe, go ahead, Brenda.
The packet is different than the slides for the presentation, right?
Sometimes, but I intend to make what I put into the packet for ours will be exactly what we're showing at the
Well,
meeting.
my question is if there's only 4 or 5 sentences per slide, that's going to be a lot more than 2 slides.
It is gonna be a lot more than 2 slides.
So my thinking
I-
was if you did a paper that outlined everything that was in their packet and then the slides be separate from that.
Okay. I will look at that as I'm laying it out.
Do we need a PowerPoint slide?
I don't
we
intend to
need
do
a
a
slide deck?
PowerPoint, but I would like something that is, it's being discussed, those who are sitting
In the
at
audience?
home or in the audience can look
Oh.
up and follow along as to, because sometimes you can't quite hear it.
Mhm.
And if it's very clearly written out, it's just easy to follow along and to see. And I know that I look through all the packets before the meetings, and so it's really nice to see what they're,
I do,
yeah.
I do.
And so it's really nice for anyone who's coming to be able to see what our recommendations are, and it'll also give the council a heads up if we get it in the packet. So I'll think about that, Brenda, because that is a good idea. Yeah, I wasn't 4 or 5 lines. Is not a lot. John, I'm gonna have to talk to you about that. You put the agenda up there though, and the agenda is visible on the.
It's just something that someone told me once on PowerPoints. Is that if there's too much information, then they either won't listen to you
Yeah,
so if you got bullet points, they kind of say 4 to 6 bullet points per slide. Maybe that's the better way to think of it as opposed to lines.
okay.
And that's a lot, depending upon what you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, we've got. Maybe if I
We
broke
took
it,
a lot of notes just so that you would understand what we're trying to.
yeah,
We can simplify that down.
yeah, I intend to simplify, maybe if we do like recommendations under each thing, and I do a page, you know. Enterprise funds administration, even if we don't verbalize that, that's a way that I can break it down, try to break it down a little bit. Okay, good. One last thought, do we want to meet again? Do we see a reason to meet again? Do we think it's
If we
worth
meet in
it
2
after
weeks, it'll
the?
be the day after the tentative budget has been approved.
Okay.
And we will have both revenues and expenditure, proposed revenues and proposed expenditures on that day.
And maybe some feedback from the council.
And maybe some feedback, but at the very least, we'll, as a committee, we'll have both the revenue and the expenditure side. And can look at what balancing is going to look like. And whether or not suggested cuts are.
Would that give us, I guess, the next time would be before the final budget,
Yeah, the final budget is until June
June 11th.
11th, so if we meet on the 15th in 2 weeks. That is the day after we get the tentative, and that gives a month before the final budget is passed. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I'm just wondering if we meet and come up with recommendations, are we just meeting to talk? Or
No, I think
will
we
it,
would
will
go
we
back
be
to
able to
council.
get back to council in
I'm
a good
sure
time?
they would let us go back and make another presentation that, you know, now that we have,
Based on,
based on the tentative budget.
okay,
And it may be that the tentative budget comes out and it's all balanced and everything is wonderful and we can just say, yay. You know, I don't know, we'll see.
okay,
I'll bring treats. Somebody else bring drinks.
okay.
Okay.
It'll be
Not
it'll be
alcoholic
our
drinks.
I'll bring the confetti.
budget committee party. So May 15th, we will have our last
Poppers.
meeting. Very good, so. And I'm actually gonna quickly decide, so on May 15th, what would we want on the agenda, so I can get that turned in, because I also.
I think review of the tentative budget would be
Just
the
review
agenda.
of tentative
Tentative
budget.
budget.
Yeah. Because that tentative budget will not only have all the yellow, you know, all the information we've looked at the yellow sheets. But it will also have,
Can I put also small celebration,
sure,
And you could put possible suggestions if it's not, you know.
more, yeah.
yeah, it'll have the full budget,
Review
so
of,
we'll be able to.
review
look
of
at it.
tentative budget, final suggestions, if any.
That's good.
Just before we got married, bought a brand new car. And somebody got in my car the day that we got married, and the day I sold that car, I had confetti falling out of it 7 years later. You'd hit a bump on the freeway and confetti would blow
That's
out.
good. Good.
I just want to say a reminder we won't have actual property tax numbers until closer to June.
Okay.
Okay.
So whatever's in the budget will be.
An
complete
estimate.
estimate, And it's.
But your estimates are always so accurate. She's spot on.
I'm sure you're pretty close.
Take it to the bank.
No, so I asked this question because I see the prices that people are listing their houses for, and obviously they must be selling, because there's not a lot of houses for sale in North Ogden, and I'm like, so based on assessed value,
Last year's assessed value, the average was 519. And I won't get that information again until they release all of the information. The year
Have you got a
before,
trend that you
the
use?
year before it was 525.
So it's gone down.
it did a little bit because of the market
I think it's
or the
going
interest rate, but I think prices are going
back up.
back up.
Yeah. Now in a couple weeks.
I think you have reason to be happy. I won't like the assessor probably, with my proposed bill, I'll get in September.
Well, remember this. You can appeal your appraised value
It only lasts for a year.
to the county, right? But talking to the auditor, the clerk auditor and the assessor, when I did mine a couple of years ago, when we had that huge increase.
Yeah.
I got $100,000 reduction in my value. And when I talked to them, on the order of 87% of all challenges are approved. So it's to your benefit to,
You have to do it quite often.
yeah, once a year.
If you're not gonna sell,
What's that?
if you're not looking to sell.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Well, nobody looks at the assessed value and goes by that, you know. That's Donald Trump. Or, what's his name, who's the,
Depends on who's doing your homework, right?
yeah,
So what did you do? Just go to a realtor and have them?
I called a realtor friend and just said, hey, can you pull 10 comps for me in my area, send it to me as a PDF. Sent it to me as a PDF, I went through and I just took the average of those and just said, you know, this is what I think my home is worth. Cause it's all online, you don't have to go down. Filled out the application, attached the PDF, and about 5 weeks later got my notification. And it-
Should we, motion to finish now? we
Oh,
can chit chat.
motion to adjourn.
We can, just so we're not recording, then we can